Welcome to our podcast, Dr. Diaries Adventures to Ireland. I'm your host, Graham. The aim of this podcast is to showcase doctors' relocation journeys to Ireland. So whether you're a doctor interested in the move or just curious about life in Ireland, this is the podcast for you. Now, let's get into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Dr. Diaries Adventures to Ireland. Today, we have a special guest, Stephanie, joining us on the podcast. Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Thank you, Graham. Thanks for having me. So my name is Stephane Maingard. I'm currently working at Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital as a pediatric registrar. I moved here in July 2022, still currently working at the hospital, and I've recently had my qualifications recognized, and I'm on the specialist register now as a qualified pediatrician, and unfortunately got a consultant job now at Hollis Street, and I will be starting there in January. So that's where I am at the moment.
Yeah, that's how exciting is that? New year, new job, and moving up to the big dogs in Dublin, where you're taking up your first consultant post. We might we'll delve into that in a little bit of detail later on, but we might bring it back to the very beginning, and it's that thought of moving to Ireland initially, knowing you for however long we've known each other, Stephanie. You had not just moving for a job, you had a whole family unit behind you. Talk us through that and the first thought about why the move to Ireland was so attractive to you.
Sure. So I think it all happened in July 2021. It was just obviously with all the problems with COVID. And then in my province and town that I lived in, Durban, we had significant looting and rioting that occurred. And with a family with two boys, we just decided we needed to do what's best for the family and look for a better life for my children. And that's when we started looking at our options of moving either to, well, initially we thought Dubai, but then obviously the prospects of Ireland looked a little bit better for us. I then got into contact with Bibi Bassa. She's currently now working as a trainee in emergency medicine. I'm not sure which hospital she's currently working in, but she then recommended your name. And then that's when I got hold of you, Graham. And then we went through the process of getting me onto the register for general registration. So that took quite a bit of time, just the whole process with getting onto the register. However, I think in February of 2022, you then secured an interview for me. I think it was initially with Wexford. You helped me quite a lot with just prepping for the interview, which was great, and what to expect for that. So that went really well. I got the job for Wexford. However, with my husband working as a mechanical engineer, we just didn't see any prospects for him potentially for getting a job there. And that's when we held off. We got the interview for me at Drogheda. And as we could see, obviously, because we've never been to Ireland, the location was close to Dublin. It seemed to suit us. We then decided to accept the offer for Drogheda. So it was quite daunting for us because we have never obviously been to Ireland. We did plan to move to or to go and visit in December of 2021. However, thanks to COVID again and our variation in South Africa, they put a restriction on our traveling. So my husband and I weren't able to come across to Ireland just to come and have a look. So then after securing the job then in Drogheda,
went in blind and decided to just go for it. Yeah.
Exactly. We went in blind, just had to sell a house, cars, everything, pack everything up, organize a shipment for some of our things. We brought very few things across, mainly the kids' toys, just that there's some, familiarity for them. And then we moved in, I think it was just beginning of July. We basically got dropped off at an Airbnb in Bettystown. We didn't know anyone in Ireland, and we just started our life. So it was quite a challenging first few weeks to settle in, but ultimately now, we've so fortunate and so pleased that we did make the move.
Yeah, and like you said, you're moving with a family is quite a big undertaking, isn't it? How
Yes.
your kids, your two boys at the time, were quite young. How did you broach that subject with them, that you're moving from Durban and you're moving across the world?
Yeah, so my little one was 15 months at the time. So, didn't really matter to him. We're just going on an adventure.
Sure.
He was none the
Yeah.
wiser, but for my 4-year-old, it was quite a challenge. I think what did help the whole move was also my sister. We basically moved at this, we were on the same flight out to Dubai, with her family. They moved to Sweden at the same time that we moved here. So I think that helped my eldest, that his cousin who was his best friend was also moving and not staying in South Africa. So I think that helped, and also to know that they also in Europe, so we will be visiting. So we just had to prepare them in that way. And then yeah, there were some challenges initially because to get them into a creche was quite difficult. So my husband had to stay at home in the first few months just to look after them, and then my eldest son got a place then at well, we were fortunate actually, because also just for people to know, it like the rental crisis is real. It is difficult to get a place, but we were very fortunate
Absolutely.
to move into a rental within the first 10 days of moving here. And fortunately, it was really in a central part of the town, and we were just a few meters of 100 meters away from a nearest creche. So my eldest son was able to attend then the one of the creches here to join the ECI scheme. And then we just, asked the community, and at work advised me to get hold, to look for childminders. And that's how we managed to sort things out. And then my little one got into creche the following year. And then my husband was able to look for a job. And then he got a job in Mullingar initially and started work there. So initially there were some challenges, but, you know, the eldest now, he's in senior infants at St. Mary, so he settled in. My youngest is in his last year in ECI scheme, and he will start junior infants next year. So it's been great.
Okay. Yeah, and what a journey that is. And you mentioned community there, the power of community, isn't it? And I know when we spoke first, and how we deal with other doctors have done since then. We have to be very real. The housing crisis, the rental crisis is very real. The access to childcare is also very limiting. But then only once, as daunting as the move is coming over, only once you're here, you're speaking to colleagues, speaking to someone, even bumping into someone randomly in a local shop. Just the power of the Irish community sometimes can really pay it forward, and it's amazing the stories we've heard from other doctors, that how they've managed to find a job for their partner, or accommodation, or a place in school for their child while they're down in the local supermarket, or in the petrol station, wherever it might be. But that type of thing, I don't think we can take for granted, the sort of the giving nature that some of the locals afford to those who do come across. And I know you've been fortunate to have gotten that luck on your side too. Talk us through, just going back again to your job. You were a specialist pediatrician back in Durban at the time. You took a
Yes.
step back to come in as a registrar, or as our South African colleagues will know, will be a sort of a medical officer grade coming into the Irish system. Talk us through that journey for you, and how you felt initially having to take that step back to get into a brand new system.
Yeah, I think we obviously had discussed as a family, and we just knew like you had to realize what the future holds. So it was a temporary setback, and I think it was good to go into a new healthcare system as a registrar. So you had the support of a consultant. It's just simply just how do the referrals work? Where do you refer to? It's very different, the public healthcare system and the services available in Ireland compared to South Africa in the public sector. And I was also away from the public sector for quite a time because I worked in private. So I think actually in the beginning it's been really good to work as a registrar first, just to get used to the system. And then essentially it was just really good to get back into getting involved in research and just going back more into an academic setting, which I really enjoy. And I did not have the opportunity then in private practice to do what I'm doing currently. So it's been
Yeah,
really good. And I've actually grown quite a lot just in my own, my knowledge and my skills. So I know people will see it as a setback, but in a way, it's just good to reground yourself and just take a bit of time also just to settle, because you've got so many
sure.
things going on, trying to sort your house, all the paperwork, and also if you non-EU, it's all the stamps and everything you need to try and sort out. It's a good thing to try and just not be in a consultant position when you move, I think. And then it just took a bit of time. In order to get onto the specialist register, There's compulsory courses you have to do, so it allowed me to have the study time to get those courses done. So that takes a bit of time, and it took about essentially a year to do all the courses and everything that was required in order to submit to get onto the specialist register. And then essentially I was waiting on, once I've submitted, it took about 6 to 8 months to get a review and an answer from the Irish Medical Council regarding the specialist register. So it was just good for me, I just decided it's good to stay in one place and continue at the hospital at Our Lady of Lourdes, continue building the relationships. And so it's been good for me. So I think it was a good starting point. I am now ready to take the next step and be back going into a consultant position. Again, it will be something new and a huge learning curve again to work in a tertiary centre in Ireland. But yeah, ready for the new challenge.
Yeah, and just to go back on the piece of the equivalence in training. So, as a pediatrician coming from South Africa, despite having your specialist training, there was still that gap based on the Irish qualifications that you needed to fill. Isn't that correct? In order to be eligible for specialist, so you took that time to do
So
those extra.
yeah, it's not, I think our training program is the same and our skill level and knowledge that we have is the same. But it is really just there's additional courses that, and it's part of the HST program that you need to do. But it's really the training is the same. We in terms of our clinical skills, we sufficient in that regard. But it's purely just it's paperwork. It's ticking the boxes, making sure you've done the courses, and then you just need to prove that your training back in South Africa is similar to the training that's here in Ireland. It obviously takes on different names, so I had to just get used to that. So I think for people back home, BST is basically the equivalent to being a junior medical officer in South Africa. So it's the basic specialist training that they have here for 2 years. So for South Africans, that's the equivalent to being a community service officer in your first year as a medical officer when you're just out of community service. And then their higher specialist training that that we obviously have here now in Ireland is then equivalent to your registrar training in South Africa. So I think it's just knowing the terminology as well, because obviously
Sure.
when I moved here, I didn't quite understand all the different things, but it all makes sense now. So it's just for people to know that as well.
Yeah, and then when it comes to the registration, to get ready for all that paperwork, right, and to be as
It's a lot.
organized as you possibly can. Yeah, I have plenty right now going through that heartache too, but it's worth it, right? And like you said, you
Definitely.
spent that time getting valuable Irish experience, building your Irish network, finding your, I guess, your champion within the department to say, hey, I'm looking to get specialist reg, ultimately to move up as consultant. Help me, so that
Yes.
I can get there. So knowing from catching up with you recently, you've gotten that support in where you are right now, and now they're ready to let you fly onto your next journey, and that being moving on to Hollow Street. What an amazing progression story that you're able to share there now too. What I'm intrigued to find out about, and not just yourself, but from other doctors in different specialties, is what you found being the biggest difference in patients between pediatric patients in Durban versus pediatric patients here in Ireland. Are you seeing the same cases, or have you come across differences?
So, especially with my interest and where I'm going to go into now from January in neonatology, it's obviously the same. But, in South Africa, especially in the public sector, infection is at the top of the list. It's a very different patient profile. The children, they're a lot sicker. It's just you're dealing with sepsis, infection, and just they're more towards the end of the spectrum of how sick they are. Whereas in Ireland, fortunately, when you do see the patients in ED, you have room to work with. You can actually help them. You can actually get on top of it. I think the biggest difference here, and one of my colleagues that's also just moved across now from South Africa, is just it's great to be part of a healthcare system where people want to make a change and you can actually bring about the improvement as well. Whereas in South Africa, especially in the public sector, you want to do good, you want to make a change, but you just don't have the staffing and the resources, and there's just too many, it's just too many people. Whereas here, obviously, it's not a perfect system. You still have waiting times in ED, especially in winter. However,
Sure.
the support is a lot better here. So from consultants, you're not left on your own as a registrar. I think that is great compared to what it was like in the public sector. You're very much on your own there. You don't have so much support just because it's just purely the volume of people that you're dealing with. Whereas here, it's done more in a controlled environment. You have the support. You're never on your own. So especially as what some of the junior doctors, they're very well supported. And I think also when you've done a resus, the emotional support and the debriefing is a lot better here than what it was in South Africa. So I think it's a great system here, and it's great to be a part of it.
Amazing. And you're dead right to acknowledge our system is far from perfect, but there are better safeguards, there are better resources, there are stronger, well-supported teams in order for you to be able to deliver the best possible care to the patients in front of you. So it's a stark difference to the background that you're coming from. We talked about community previously outside of work. Did you initially tap into the obvious South African community here, or how did you and the family get ingrained in Irish life?
Yeah, so I think we try to not just seek South Africans. I think it's quite an easy thing to
Okay.
do. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people try and replicate South Africa and Ireland, which I don't really agree with, especially if you want to live here the rest of your life. You really need to get into the culture and actually meet Irish people and, just go out of your comfort zone, essentially. So I'm a
Yeah.
runner, and my husband also enjoys cycling and gymming and running. So I just joined the local running club. So I attended training sessions. So I've made quite a few friends just through running. Did the Dublin Marathon last year, which was amazing. It's you can't beat
Amazing.
the Irish
Yeah.
supporters along the road. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic. And then my son is now playing, like he's involved now with the sports. So he's joined the soccer club and the local rugby club. And my husband helps with the coaching as well. It's just a way to get into and get involved in the community. So that's been great.
Yeah. Controversial question here now. Which national team is your son going to play for if he continues on playing rugby?
Well, we'll have to be Ireland. We're happy with that.
I didn't know which way that was going to go, so I'm glad. Okay, we've
Unfortunately,
the
they're playing
makeup.
well, so that's good.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Well, we've the makeup of a buck in a future Irish star, so we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for a man grade coming onto our pitches very soon. Very good.
Exactly.
Well, look, delving further into your guys' time getting into the Irish spirit, we're going to jump into a few quick fire questions for you now, Stephanie. Tell me, firstly, your favorite place that you visited in Ireland since you've moved.
Our favorite place, and hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly, it's Cloggerhead. So it's just north of us,
Yeah,
and we love it there. Just taking a walk there along the coastline, and then Hoth also, just because we love nature, we love being outdoors. So those are our two favorite places to go.
yeah. I have to give you kudos, particularly with Hoth. A lot of people call it Howth. You've certainly you visited enough to know that it's called Hoth, whatever way you want to call it. Yeah, I have to agree. It's one of the lovelier spots along our Dublin coastline, and yeah, a nice place to go to on the weekend when you're not plagued by the seagulls. The seagulls in Hoth have a reputation.
Exactly.
Don't be caught with a bag of chips in Hoth.
But they are good, the fish and chips from Bechows. That's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, very good. Okay, next one. Favorite Irish celebrity.
Cillian Murphy has to be.
Gosh, who doesn't like Cillian Murphy? Yeah, yeah, top of the list there. Do we have a close second?
As Saoirse Ronan. Yeah, she's been really good.
Yeah,
Great actress.
yeah, very good. Yeah, championing the Irish actors out there, amazing. And favorite or sort of maybe better phrasing this, Irish slang or Irish phrase that maybe perplexed you initially, now you've adopted into your own vocabulary.
There's a few, but the ones that I've really well, just when we started out, so you're very welcome. So that's always, and I'm doing the same. And then
Yeah,
you're grand. So everything's you're grand.
yeah,
And then I suppose no bother. There's never no bother. Like, the Irish people are very relaxed. So I love
yeah,
those phrases. And we found ourselves also using it now as well. And then my little one now, it's, will you mind this for me? So it's an Irish thing. So that's
yeah.
part of his vocabulary now.
Amazing, yes. So they're now it's seeping into their bones too. Great, unreal. And despite being here for into your third year now, I'm sure you still have those home comforts, those things that maybe family to bring the next time they're here, or you ask them to send across? What's your home comfort that reminds you of Durban?
So it's the wine. We definitely asked to bring a few
Okay.
bottles of wine for us. It's just
Yeah,
purely it's nothing beats the South African wine, and it's a lot cheaper back home than it is here. Um,
sure.
then Biltong, so that's one of our favorites. So we definitely ask the when my
Okay.
parents come and visit to bring it for us.
Have you found anywhere reliable in Ireland that does a decent biltong? Or it doesn't match up to
Haven't actually. We
back
haven't
home?
looked for it, to be honest. It's just that's South
Okay.
Africa, and we ask them to bring it for us when they come and visit. But yeah, we actually haven't looked for any places selling biltong here,
Okay.
so we just have it on the
Better,
rare
better
occasions
not
we see
mess
family.
don't mess with the good stuff then, and just stick with
Exactly.
the original is the message here. Amazing. And I guess for you yourself and the family, now being here, have you found you've changed personally and professionally since moving across in 2021, 2022?
Yes, I think we definitely, it's a more relaxed environment. I think taking things, it's not rushed. We can walk the children to school, we can walk where we want to go, we can go for a cycle on the weekends. You don't have so many people to meet. And, what we used to do in South Africa, it was a very rushed lifestyle there. I think, yeah, it's taking a step back and living in a smaller town as well. It's just, it's been really good, more close, more family time, I think, is the biggest thing. And then just being able to get out in nature and go for the walks, because it's not too hot to be outside. Whereas in Durban in the summer, it was
Yeah.
hot and humid and you got a bit uncomfortable. Whereas here, same temperature throughout the whole year. So just have the right clothing and then you're fine.
Yeah, and also, speaking of that safety piece, speaking from experience, having a family of my own, that I know from when we last met was a big piece for yourself and your husband, is just safety for yourselves, the kids, and their future, and now that's just second nature to you guys.
Yeah, it's I think for especially for the children in the community or the estate that we live in. My children go out, especially in summer, obviously when we've got a lot of daylight hours. They run around outside on the green, go ride on their bikes with all the other kids, and it's a kind of freedom that you just don't have in South Africa. And I think it's so great that you can have it here. And it's just the best part of the mornings when I get to drop my kids off at school, is all the families walking, dropping the kids off at school or cycle, on their scooters. It's brilliant. It's just a different lifestyle.
Yeah, and something again us Irish definitely take for granted, that freedom to just
Exactly.
walk between places we need to get to. So, if you were to give someone listening to this who's on the fence about moving across to Ireland one piece of advice, what would that be?
I think it's just, especially if it's with the family, just be realistic. It is a challenge. I think the first year just to settle in, it does take time, but then get involved with the community, and like it, you will see it's definitely it's worth everything. It's worth the sacrifice and the difficult times, because it's just the being out. First of all, Ireland's just such a beautiful country. Yes, the weather is what it is, but you deal with it. But it is the opportunities as well to travel in Europe. That's been amazing. Cheap flights, just get on board and you go and visit different countries. That's been such a great part for us. So there's just so much opportunity here for us. And I think for my husband and me as well, the opportunities for us in our work is just far more here than they would have been in South Africa. So, and I think also going forward for my children as well, and that's why we made the move. It's just there's more opportunities here, so it's definitely worth all of it.
Amazing, and you'd now happily call Ireland home.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, how nice to hear. One final one before we finish up today, Stephanie, and that is, what is the best part for you personally about life here in Ireland?
Well, as I just said previously, it's the freedom, it's the safety, it's being able as a woman to go and run, in town and not be afraid to go for that run. so that you take that, obviously we take it for granted here, but it's very much, it's just not something that you can do in South Africa. So it's the safety, and then it's just, as I said, it's the freedom for the children to play around and to be outside and just be around with their friends. It's just you can't buy that. So it's been amazing.
Unreal. Amazing. Thanks so much for coming on today. Thanks for sharing your story. Best of luck with the new job in
Thank
the
you.
coming months. And we'll certainly have to meet up again when you've moved down to Dublin, to the big university teaching setting that you're moving on to. And yeah, thanks again for taking your time today. We'll speak very soon.
And thank you for having me.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. If you like what you heard today, please follow wherever you get your podcasts. Want to kickstart your relocation journey? Reach out to the team on our socials at Matchmates.